Hello guys, welcome to the Code Patch. My name is Nick and this is your 12th C++ programming tutorial. So in the last tutorial we learned what switch case is and how to create a menu for our program. So in this tutorial we'll be learning an arrays. So arrays are pretty much the most important thing in programming, and wherever you go in programming you usually encounter an array. So an array is basically a variable that can hold multiple values. So you remember our analogy with variables and houses. So let's just continue on that. So we have a variable here. It has its address and it has its value. Let's say this is A. It has some address and it's some value, right? So what an array is basically a street. So where variables were houses, an array is a street of houses. So it's a when you create an array, it's basically a street where you have multiple houses or multiple values. And each of these houses has its address, its value, and this first house, when you create an array, and for example, the name of the array is A, so the first house, its index is 0. The second house has an index of 1, so this is A of 1, this is A of 2, and so on. We have here a house, the last house of our array, which is A of nth. So this house has index 0, this house has index 1, and this house has index 2, and so on. Alright, so the last house has an index of n. Alright, so how do we create an array in our code? So we say int, then the name of our array, and then these brackets, and inside you want to put basically how many elements you want your array to have. And this int means that every element in our array is going to be an integer. So for example, if we put double here, every element in our array would be a double. Okay, so now how do we initialize? For example, we want this house right here that has an index of 0 to be 5. Alright, so we're just going to say A of 0 is equal 5. Alright, so now first element in our array has a value of 5, and so on. So for example, if we wanted 4 here, we're going to say A, that is the index 1, so we say A of 1 is equal 2, for example. Okay, so there is an easier way to do this. So you say here equal, and then you open these two curly brackets, so just like a body, and inside you put the values in rows. So if you wanted this, so we're going to say on the 0 is going to be 5, on the first is going to be 2, let's say on the second is going to be 6, and let's say 7, 7, 7. Alright, and now we successfully created our array. So let's just compile, and you see it works. So this now is our array. It has 6 houses, and these are the values. Alright, so now let's just print out our array. Right, so let's just say cout A. Okay, and just like we did before, and compile and run it, and we get a hexadecimal number. So that's not what we wanted. Alright, so this is terribly wrong and we don't want that. So what did we want? We wanted to print out all of these values. So let me show you why it printed out that hexadecimal number. So when we say cout A, the cout A basically takes this address right here. So addresses in our memory of our computers are hexadecimal numbers. So it basically took this address and printed it out on screen. So this printed out this A1, that was some hexadecimal number, so some hexadecimal number, and we don't want that. So this is why we have these brackets. They basically mean don't take the address of A, take the value that is on the index of this that we put inside. So when we say A of 0, our computer is going to find first the address of this, so it's going to go here to A1, but it's not going to print A1, it's going to print, so these brackets basically mean print me, or I want the value that is on the 0th index. So this is called indexing, and we use this all of the time, so you'll see later. And so it takes 5 instead of this address when we say A of 0, and so on for the A of 1, and so on. So when we printed out just A, it basically printed the beginning of our array, the address where our array begins. So it printed out this A1. So now let's just print A of 0, okay? So now it should work. So it says 5. Okay, so how do we print out the entire array? Well, we can just take this, right, and copy it 6 times, alright? So we say A of 1, A of 2, A of... Alright, let me just, okay, let's delete this and add a new line here, and then copy this, alright? So let me just do that 6 times and say A of 1, A of 2, A of 3, A of 4, A of 5. Alright, so now let's compile and run, and we should have an entire array printed out. So here it is. So we can do that, but imagine if our array, for example, had 100 elements. So we will have to do this 100 times. So what we're going to use is a loop, right? So that is why we learned loops first. So the for loop is mainly used for arrays, all right? So, and here is how we use it. So we type for, and so we say int I starts at 0, and it goes. So our array had 6 elements, right? So let's say while A is lesser than 6, right, or 5, because no 6, okay, and we're going to increment our I in every iteration, and then we're going to see out what, right? What are we going to print out? So we want to print out first A of 0, then A of 1, then A of 2, then A of 3, then A of 4, and so on. So how do we do that? Well, we say cout A of I. Alright, so we print A of I, and in the first iteration A is going to be 0. In the second iteration A is going to be 1. In the third iteration A is going to be 3, and until it's 6, alright? So no, we don't need this equal sign, so like this, alright? And let's just now see if this works. And there it is, there is our array. So you see it's printed out, so let's just add a new line after every number. Okay, and let's now compile it. And there it is, there is our array. So you see it's the same as we wrote cout 6 times and wrote an index for every number we want, but this is much easier, much nicer, and a much better way to print out our array. So fors are mostly used in arrays, and you'll see that later. Alright, so I hope you guys learned for, and if you didn't, go to my past video, or I don't know, it was 10th or something like that. I don't remember, so just find a for video and look it up again if you don't know how to use for. And so that's it basically. So that is how we initialize our array and print it out on the screen. Right, so that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we'll be learning how to input, how we make our user input an array, alright, and how to do something with it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.